3 nuclear warheads, yes, actual nuclear warheads, have vanished from a Siberian military base, triggering a wave of panic across Moscow and sending Western intelligence agencies scrambling. The disappearance of 3 nuclear warheads from a Siberian military base has sent shockwaves not only through Russia, but across the global security community, marking one of the most serious breaches of nuclear safety in recent decades, and raising urgent questions about the integrity, oversight, and vulnerabilities of one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals. From the first moment the loss was suspected, Russian military and intelligence officials launched an all-out investigation, but the sheer audacity of the incident has left experts questioning how such critical weapons could vanish without immediate detection, and the answers so far have been partial and contradictory, suggesting a combination of systemic flaws, human error, and possible malicious intent. Security protocols at nuclear facilities are supposed to be among the most rigorous in any nation, involving layers of electronic monitoring, physical barriers, armed personnel, surveillance systems, and strict chain of custody procedures, yet somehow, within this tightly controlled environment, these warheads were unaccounted for, forcing officials to confront the grim reality that their assumptions about impenetrable defenses may have been overly optimistic. The implications are staggering. Unlike conventional arms, nuclear warheads cannot simply be replaced or neutralized without significant risk, and any unauthorized access or transfer carries not only geopolitical consequences, but the potential for catastrophic human and environmental harm. As news of the disappearance spread, panic among senior Russian officials became apparent, with emergency meetings convened in high-security facilities where advisors, generals, and security chiefs attempted to assess the extent of the breach, identify personnel involved, and prevent further compromise, all while attempting to maintain the outward appearance of control. At the same time, analysts outside Russia have scrambled to understand the potential scenarios. Could the weapons have been moved to an unmonitored location within Siberia, stolen by rogue actors, or smuggled out of the country entirely, and if so, for what purpose? Every possibility carries profound consequences, from the threat of nuclear terrorism to destabilization of the global nuclear balance and a severe erosion of trust in Russia's ability to safeguard its arsenal. Within the Kremlin and the Ministry of Defense, speculation about insider involvement has intensified, as only a select group of personnel would have the clearance and technical expertise to access, transport, and potentially disarm or conceal such warheads, and the very fact that these individuals could act without immediate detection highlights its vulnerabilities that experts have long warned could exist in systems overburdened by bureaucratic inefficiency, corruption, or complacency. Meanwhile, emergency security measures have been implemented across Siberia, with additional checkpoints, troop deployments, and aerial surveillance aimed at preventing further movement of the warheads while investigators attempt to reconstruct the timeline and track potential leads. But the lack of public information and conflicting official statements have only fueled global concern, as nations reliant on accurate intelligence for strategic planning must now operate with uncertainty regarding the location, condition, and security status of these nuclear weapons. The disappearance has also prompted immediate consultations among international partners and nuclear watchdogs, with agencies like the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, seeking clarifications on inventory records, chain of custody documentation, and security protocols at the affected facility, emphasizing that even the temporary unaccounted status of nuclear warheads represents an unacceptable risk to regional and global stability. Analysts point out that the situation also exposes the difficulty in balancing secrecy and transparency. While public acknowledgement of the incident could incite panic or embolden malicious actors, complete secrecy risks undermining confidence in Russia's nuclear command structure and could complicate international coordination in responding to potential threats. The human dimension cannot be ignored, as personnel at the Siberian base face intense scrutiny, internal investigations, and pressure under conditions of extreme stress, with careers, reputations, and potentially personal freedom at stake, while the larger strategic implications extend far Beyond individual accountability, touching on deterrence doctrines, nuclear nonproliferation commitments, and the credibility of global nuclear safeguards. Furthermore, the disappearance has sparked discussions among geopolitical analysts about the possible motives behind the incident, whether it is criminal opportunism, political sabotage, insider dissent, or an external operation exploiting vulnerabilities, and each scenario has unique implications for Russia's internal cohesion, its relations with neighboring states, and the global community's perception of nuclear security. The event serves as a sobering reminder that even the most heavily guarded nuclear assets are not invulnerable, that human factors and systemic flaws can intersect with devastating consequences, and that vigilance, accountability, and rapid response mechanisms are critical to preventing incidents that could spiral into international crises. And as the investigation continues, every hour of uncertainty regarding the location and control of these warheads amplifies the tension, urgency, and potential risks, leaving both Russian authorities and the global community grappling with a threat that is unprecedented in scale and gravity in the post-Cold War era, fundamentally challenging assumptions about nuclear security and the safeguards relied upon to prevent catastrophic outcomes. The confirmed breach of 3 nuclear warheads from a Siberian military base has plunged Russia's security apparatus into an unprecedented state of alarm, with cascading effects rippling through the military, intelligence agencies, political leadership, and the global community, as officials struggle to understand how such a critical lapse could occur despite years of stringent safeguards, layered security protocols, and tightly controlled command structures designed to prevent any unauthorized access or movement of nuclear weapons. And the gravity of the situation is amplified by the fact that these warheads are not simply high-value military assets but represent existential threats, meaning that their disappearance is not merely a domestic embarrassment but a potential global crisis, demanding immediate investigation, containment, and transparency where possible. From the first hours after the initial reports, Russian military command initiated emergency procedures, mobilizing personnel to sweep all nuclear and strategic facilities, increasing surveillance, and deploying rapid response units to key transportation nodes, bases, and remote storage locations. While senior officials convened around high-security tables, reviewing logs chain of custody records and security camera footage, trying to reconstruct every movement, anomaly, and decision that could have led to this unprecedented breach, and recognizing that each hour of uncertainty magnifies both the internal panic and the potential external consequences. Analysts inside Russia and abroad immediately recognized that the disappearance implied an extraordinary level of planning and execution, likely involving insiders with intimate knowledge of protocols, security routines, and personnel movements, and possibly exploiting both technological gaps and human vulnerabilities. The notion that someone with authorized access or the ability to bypass layers of verification could facilitate such an event raises disturbing questions about loyalty, oversight, and the structural integrity of Russia's nuclear command systems, forcing security services to operate under heightened suspicion where no assumption of trust can be safely made. The human dimension of the crisis cannot be overstated, as personnel responsible for safeguarding the warheads are subjected to intense scrutiny, interrogations, and internal monitoring, with careers, reputations, and personal freedom at stake, while the political leadership must weigh the competing imperatives of securing the weapons, maintaining public calm, and preventing the international community from overreacting or taking preemptive measures that could escalate geopolitical tensions. This balance is difficult to strike because nuclear weapons carry unique risks that demand both absolute security and careful communication. Yet the very nature of the disappearance undermines confidence in the system and introduces a climate of fear, uncertainty, and suspicion that spreads far beyond the walls of the Siberian base. As investigators dig deeper, they have uncovered a series of procedural lapses and anomalies, from gaps in surveillance coverage to delays in reporting movements of critical assets, which may indicate systemic weaknesses that existed long before the disappearance, suggesting that the event was not purely a matter of malfeasance by a single individual, but may reflect broader institutional vulnerabilities, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and flaws in risk assessment, all of which could have been exploited by those intent on misappropriating or sabotaging these warheads, whether for political, financial, or ideological motives. The Kremlin's internal response has been equally dramatic, with emergency meetings convened in undisclosed locations, orders for immediate lockdowns of all strategic military installations, and deployment of elite security units to investigate and intercept any potential further movement of nuclear material, while political advisors weigh the reputational consequences of publicly acknowledging the scale of the breach, understanding that full disclosure could generate domestic panic, international scrutiny, and destabilizing speculation, yet any delay or obfuscation risks further undermining confidence and leaving Russia vulnerable to external criticism and internal dissent. Internationally, the disappearance of nuclear warheads has mobilized intelligence communities, defense analysts, and nuclear security experts, as monitoring systems, satellite imagery, and electronic surveillance are focused on tracking potential movements of the missing weapons, assessing whether they have been removed from Russia entirely or concealed within the country, and evaluating the risk of proliferation or potential use by rogue actors. The stakes could not be higher, as any miscalculation or oversight could have catastrophic consequences, highlighting the interdependence of national security and global stability when it comes to nuclear materials. The scenario has also triggered a reassessment of existing nuclear nonproliferation measures, security protocols, and international agreements, as the disappearance underscores the fragility of even the most heavily protected arsenals and the need for constant vigilance, independent verification, and multi-layered monitoring to ensure that weapons of mass destruction do not fall into unauthorized hands. And experts emphasize that the incident should serve as a case study for reinforcing oversight, accountability, and rapid response mechanisms at both national and international levels. Within Russia, the immediate concern is to secure the remaining stockpile, identify potential accomplices or negligent personnel, and restore operational confidence in the nuclear command and control system, while simultaneously managing the internal narrative to maintain public trust and minimize the risk of panic, given the profound psychological and political impact of knowing that nuclear warheads can be unaccounted for even briefly, a situation that undermines both domestic stability and strategic credibility. As investigators continue their work, attention has turned to tracing the operational chain, reconstructing who had access to the warheads, when and how potential gaps were exploited, and whether the disappearance was facilitated by technical failures, human error, or intentional collusion. Because each factor carries implications for accountability, reform, and prevention of future breaches, and the combination of urgency, complexity, and high stakes places unprecedented pressure on security, personnel, analysts, and policymakers alike. Furthermore, the incident has illuminated broader questions about risk management, redundancy in security systems, personnel training, and the adequacy of oversight structures, as well as the challenges of balancing secrecy with transparency, since excessive concealment may exacerbate risk, while full disclosure could trigger panic or opportunistic threats. These dynamics create a delicate operational and strategic challenge for Russian authorities, as they must ensure both the physical security of nuclear assets and the psychological confidence of domestic and international observers. The disappearance of the 3 nuclear warheads has effectively placed Russia in an extraordinary state of emergency, where every operational decision, investigative lead, and security response is magnified in importance, and the potential consequences of failure extend far beyond national borders, encompassing global security, diplomatic stability, and the credibility of international treaties designed to prevent the misuse of nuclear weapons. Analysts emphasize that the current crisis is a stark reminder that nuclear assets, despite layers of protection and oversight, remain vulnerable to human, technical, and institutional failures, and that the consequences of even a brief lapse can ripple outward, influencing global security, calculations, strategic deterrence postures, and the confidence of allies and adversaries alike. And as Russia works to recover and secure these weapons, the world watches closely, fully aware that the stakes involve not only a national security breach, but a potential international crisis. Implications for the safety, stability, and strategic balance of the entire planet. The sudden disappearance of 3 nuclear warheads from a Siberian military base has sent shockwaves through Russia and the international security community, representing a crisis of unprecedented scale and complexity that underscores the fragility of nuclear command and control systems, even in a nation long regarded as having one of the most formidable and tightly secured arsenals in the world. And the event has forced military and political leaders to confront the terrifying reality that highly destructive weapons can, under certain circumstances, become vulnerable to misplacement, theft, or sabotage, with potential consequences that extend far beyond national borders and into the realm of global security, diplomacy, and strategic stability, because nuclear weapons are unique in their destructive power and symbolic significance, making any lapse in their security a matter of existential concern. Within hours of the initial reports, Russian authorities initiated emergency procedures, convening high-level meetings with senior generals, intelligence chiefs, and political advisors to assess the scale of the breach, implement containment measures, and determine both the origin and possible destination of the missing warheads, while simultaneously trying to maintain the appearance of control and authority to prevent widespread panic domestically and avoid signaling vulnerability to foreign actors, who would be closely monitoring the situation for any exploitable weaknesses. Investigators quickly realized that the disappearance required access to not only the physical facilities where the warheads were stored, but also to sensitive information about security protocols, personnel assignments, timing of movements, and electronic monitoring systems, indicating that only individuals with insider knowledge could have carried out such an operation, whether through intentional malfeasance, coercion, or exploitation of systemic weaknesses, and the implications of such insider involvement have introduced a profound sense of paranoia and mistrust throughout the ranks of personnel responsible for nuclear security, as colleagues and supervisors are forced to question the loyalty and reliability of those closest to the weapons. The human and institutional dimensions of the crisis are immense, as personnel involved in safeguarding, maintaining, and transporting nuclear weapons face intense scrutiny, interrogation, and monitoring under conditions of extreme pressure, with their careers, reputations, and personal freedom hanging in the balance, while the political leadership must navigate the competing imperatives of ensuring immediate security, investigating the breach thoroughly, maintaining public confidence, and managing international relations, because any misstep could exacerbate panic, erode strategic credibility, or provoke adversaries to take preemptive or opportunistic action. Security teams across Siberia have been mobilized to reinforce physical safeguards, conduct systematic inspections, and verify the presence and integrity of all remaining nuclear warheads, while rapid response units patrol transportation routes, storage facilities, and other critical infrastructure to prevent any further unauthorized movement, and intelligence analysts are reviewing satellite imagery, communications traffic, and other data streams to identify potential leads, patterns, or networks that may have been involved. But the vast geographic expanse and the extreme environmental conditions of Siberia complicate these operations, making every hour of uncertainty particularly perilous. The crisis has also prompted intense scrutiny of procedural lapses and systemic vulnerabilities within Russia's nuclear command structure, revealing weaknesses in surveillance coverage, chain of custody protocols, access controls, and personnel vetting processes that could have been exploited, intentionally or inadvertently, to facilitate the disappearance, and the combination of human error, bureaucratic inefficiency, and potential insider collusion underscores the complex interplay of factors that can undermine even the most sophisticated security systems, while raising urgent questions about how such vulnerabilities can be addressed to prevent recurrence. Internationally, the incident has triggered rapid responses from intelligence agencies, defense analysts, and nuclear security experts, who are assessing the potential for the warheads to have been moved outside Russia or concealed in a manner that poses risks of proliferation or unauthorized use. Because even a temporary unaccounted status for nuclear weapons can destabilize regional security, alter strategic calculations, and create conditions for potential conflict, as global actors must now contend with the uncertainty of where these weapons are, who may have access, and what their intentions might be. The Kremlin's public messaging has been cautious and deliberately opaque, acknowledging the incident only in the vaguest terms while withholding operational details and avoiding confirmation of the scale of the breach, a strategy designed to prevent domestic panic and avoid emboldening potential adversaries. But this very secrecy fuels speculation, conspiracy theories, and unease both domestically and internationally. As observers struggle to gauge the severity of the situation and the competence of Russia's nuclear security apparatus, analysts emphasize that the disappearance highlights the critical need for redundancy, robust oversight, independent verification, and continuous monitoring within nuclear command and control structures, as well as comprehensive training and accountability mechanisms for personnel with access to these weapons, because even the smallest lapse in procedure can have disproportionately large consequences when dealing with weapons capable of mass destruction. The investigation into the disappearance has revealed multiple potential vectors, including theft, internal sabotage, technical failure, or a combination of factors. And each scenario carries unique challenges for containment, recovery, and accountability, while also complicating diplomatic relations and international coordination, because countries dependent on accurate intelligence for strategic planning must now operate under conditions of uncertainty regarding the location, security, and status of these nuclear warheads, creating a heightened risk environment in which misinterpretation or miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. Within Russia, emergency measures have been implemented at every level of the military, industrial complex, including lockdowns of other strategic facilities, enhanced patrols, increased monitoring of personnel, and deployment of specialized investigative teams to track the warheads' movements and identify possible perpetrators, while political advisors weigh the implications of disclosure versus secrecy, knowing that public acknowledgement of the breach could trigger widespread alarm, undermine trust in government institutions, and invite opportunistic action from both internal and external actors. The situation has also prompted urgent consultations with international organizations, including the International Atomic Energy Agency and strategic partners, as coordination and information sharing are crucial to prevent potential proliferation or unauthorized use, and experts stress that this event serves as a reminder that even the most heavily guarded nuclear arsenals are not immune to human, technical, or systemic vulnerabilities, and that maintaining global nuclear security requires constant vigilance, transparent accountability, and rapid response mechanisms capable of addressing both anticipated and unforeseen threats. The crisis has revealed the intersection of human, technological, and institutional factors in nuclear security, emphasizing that robust protocols alone are insufficient without rigorous enforcement, comprehensive training, and continuous evaluation, and that insider threats, procedural lapses, and systemic inefficiencies can compound to create situations of extraordinary risk. The disappearance has also cast a spotlight on the psychological and political impact of nuclear insecurity, as personnel, political leaders, and citizens alike grapple with the knowledge that weapons of mass destruction can become unaccounted for, creating widespread anxiety and undermining confidence in national and global security structures. As investigators continue their efforts to locate and secure the missing warheads, the world watches closely, aware that the stakes could not be higher, because the integrity of nuclear security is a cornerstone of strategic stability, non-proliferation, and international peace, and any misstep in response could have consequences that extend far beyond Russia's borders, affecting geopolitical balance, deterrence dynamics, and the safety of populations worldwide. Ultimately, the disappearance of these warheads serves as a sobering reminder that vigilance, accountability, and constant oversight are essential to prevent catastrophic outcomes, and that the failure to secure even a few weapons can have ramifications that ripple across nations, highlighting delicate and high stakes nature of nuclear security in the modern era.